I'm Lisa Whalen, author of Stable Weight, a memoir of hunger, horses, and hope. And I'm going to read a short excerpt from my book. This is from chapter 5, which is about Finn, one of my favorite horses, and it describes one of the first times that I interacted with him. Finn's skin was as thin as his coping ability. A nervous nature and preference for hay over oats meant he rarely gained weight, even with supplements mixed into his food. Bones closer to the surface turned every nip and kick into open wounds. I used the currycomb's metal teeth gingerly, watching for twitches that indicated sore spots, but he didn't flinch. I ran my hand over withers that arced like Everest from the base of his neck. I placed pads over the spot where 3 walnut-sized calluses had developed from saddles rubbing against his hide. The calluses had disappeared thanks to an extra narrow saddle Tom had purchased. Now only white hair marked where the mounds had once been. I velcroed a nose net to his bridle to prevent wind from tickling his nostrils and whiskers, which made him toss his head. Other riders had complained that sensitive gums made him difficult to bridle. I get it, dude. We're one of a kind. I cupped the rubber snaffle in my palm to keep it from touching his gums as I slid it between his teeth. He accepted the bit gracefully and lowered his head so I could pull the crown piece over his ears. From the first step, I loved riding Finn. A slight frame and long legs made his canter feel even faster than its winged pace. Each stride, swell, and trough left ground in our wake. He jumped like a sprite and shared my preference for light contact in the reins. The warm-up had made me practically giddy. Lining up by the gazebo to receive Liz's instructions burst my bubble. Lisa, I put you on Finn because you and he both need to work on contact. We'll do some leg yielding, which will force you to take a stronger pull on the reins. I groaned inwardly and wished for an escape. I was terrible at leg yields. Liz had explained the maneuver, which asked the horse to move diagonally while facing forward, but I'd never mastered moving each of my limbs independently to get the desired result. Something broke the line that connected the picture in my mind to the execution in my body. Your leg and hands are too quiet, Liz said once we started the exercise. You look like you're trying to move a cat instead of a horse. Finn weighs 1,100 pounds, not 11. Be louder. Turn up the volume. I squelched a rueful laugh at the game show bell that dinged in my head. Ding, ding, ding. I thought I'd left declarations that I was too quiet behind in my 20s, but apparently not. Maybe that had been the message in Finn's tap-tap pattern. Taking up space is a good start, but it's not enough. To be my own best friend, I had to let my body speak. Slow down, Lisa, that's too fast, Liz said for the 3rd time in 20 minutes once we switched to cantering. I had slowed Finn a few times already, but his speed crept up just like the Amigos when I left my foot rather than the speedometer set the pace. You need more contact to keep Finn slow. If you can't maintain a slow, rhythmic canter, I won't let you jump him. I joked with my family that my Irish heritage was to blame for my ongoing longing to gallop long lines and jump everything in our path. Ireland had invented the steeplechase, after all. But treating life like it was a steeplechase had brought me crashing down more than once. It was time to learn a new discipline. I sighed and took a firmer hold on the reins. The hunter-jumper riding 7th Farm taught countered my worst impulses in the most frustratingly gratifying way. It reminded me over and over that health and happiness require slowing down. The more frequently Liz repeated, "Slow down, that's too fast," the more I understood why Sarah had begun my eating disorder treatment by suggesting that I spend 15 minutes a day being frivolous. In her gentle way, she'd been saying, "Slow down, live in the moment, stop anticipating and rushing toward the next." It sounded eerily familiar to Liz's mantra, "Speed hurts horses, especially over the long term." "Lisa, look at the reins," Liz scolded. "You can't keep Finn slow with slack reins. Do you expect to jump without any contact?" "Sorry," I said, feeling defeated. "I know you're worried about hurting Finn's mouth, but having consistent contact is kinder than allowing slack. The reins are going to pull taut at some point, like when he jumps or falls out of balance, and you'll end up popping him in the mouth. Then he won't trust you. If he starts avoiding the bit, you'll really have problems." My brain followed Liz's logic, but my body balked. The second I felt tension in the reins, I heard my childhood riding instructor at horse camp yelling, "Don't pull on the reins, you'll hurt the horse's mouth." That was different, though. A different discipline, different, much softer bit. But my hands were faster than my mind. They let up on the reins before I could stop them. On the way home and at work that week, I imagined my triceps resisting the rein's pull, my calves pushing a horse to leg yield. I repeated in my head, loud and slow is kind. Loud and slow is kind. I got to test the effects of my mental practice the following week. I felt the difference immediately. When Finn and I jumped, the difference showed. Consistent contact made cantering's 1-2 rhythm pulse through every cell, as if my heartbeat matched a cadence Finn's feet tapped against the ground. I couldn't tell where Finn ended and I began. I knew when and where his feet would land astride before they met the sand. We crested small fences with an ease that conjured images of caramel I'd once pictured stretching from a Snickers bar. "Who are you?" Liz said when I stopped. "That was great. Bring that version of yourself to class every week." Liz's compliment was gratifying, but experience had taught me that I'd try to be that version every week and rarely succeed. For once, I was okay with that. I was beginning to accept that such peaks and valleys were inherent in writing and in life. Experience had also taught me that over the long term, my efforts' wavy line bent toward progress. I untacked Finn and led him to the paddock. He'd never gotten comfortable with stalls, but given his overall success, Tom hadn't forced the issue. Finn crossed the paddock to stand beside Cash. I smiled, seeing both geldings happy and healthy. That stood in sharp contrast to that of another horse named Caramel I met in the fall.